Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Pink Table Talk. I'm your host, Dana Johnson, and joining me today is Lorenzo Williams and his wife, Danirees. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. Once again, my name is Lorenzo, and my wife is Danirees Williams, and we are very, very happy to be here today. I happened to see your program out there and saw some gentlemen on there that I knew, Mr. G and Richard. I saw that they had some stuff going on, and I saw what your program was doing, and so I kind of reached out to you to kind of let you know about my story, and you got back to me right away, and that's how we ended up here today.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for having us. Yeah.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you deciding that this was the platform that you wanted to share your personal story with. Being a native of Milwaukee, as Lorenzo said, the power of social media is unreal because of the fact that it can connect people from 6 degrees of separation, or as a previous guest, Richard Badger, said, sometimes in Milwaukee it's more like 2 degrees. And that's literally what happened. We aired an episode on men's health, and Lorenzo happened to see that, and I want to say it was in maybe like 30 minutes after I had posted, you reached out and said, can we talk?
Yeah.
And I just want to express to those of you who are watching that is the power of social media, and it is very important, and it just elevates not only this platform but also the message and the journey that they'll share with you today. And we look forward to bringing that to everybody.
Yeah.
So if we could just talk about the fact that behind the scenes we had a conversation that you've shared your story in various networks, but not here in your hometown in Milwaukee, pretty much kind of across the country. But now being in your home and wanting to share your journey and how you and your wife collectively came to where you are at present date, if you could maybe just kind of share your personal journey, because it spans back to when you were 17, and discussing your journey with cancer, and being a survivor, and how your wife came into the fold, and where all that kind of plays out now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when I saw your program, it's not often that you get a chance to see a whole lot of programs the way I seen you presented it about health and men. And I was just intrigued because of what I had experienced. The interesting thing is with my story is so unique that people all over the country have been seeking my story, because my story is what is being called sort of a miracle.
Yes, a miracle.
And I got people seeking me all over the country, but when I share bits and pieces of what my journey was right here in our own city, it's just been really interesting to me that people don't even seem to even pay attention to what's going on. And it's just kind of similar to what, I kind of understand now what they're talking about kind of in the scriptures, not to go churchy, but it talks about a prophet not being honored within his own home. And amongst his own kindred and relatives. And that's kind of our story.
Absolutely our story.
That's kind of our story. We have had a very, very interesting journey, and we're just blessed to be here. But at the age of 17, you're from Wisconsin, right? So you remember the A.O. Smith and the Singular and the Master Lock, and all of those places were really, really thriving back then. And then boom, all that stuff kind of just went. They kind of took all of that stuff out of our community, and then it caused a great turbulence in our community. Well, with that turbulence, caused some turbulences within our homes. Because I grew up in Milwaukee around the 22nd and Capitol area, 24th Street area. And my father worked at A.O. Smith, and some of my friends' fathers worked at A.O. Smith. Well, when that stuff left, it affected everybody. So during the time when this happened to me, there was some things that was going on in the home around us, and I had like a big knot in my neck around 17, and it was just a big knot in my neck, and My parents hurt me really bad. My parents rushed me to the doctor, and the doctor came in and did some tests, and then they came back and said that it was lymphoma. Lymphoma is a cancer of the lymph node cell inside of your body, and as soon as they found that out, they told me that they needed to take my spleen out of my body, which is very important. They told me you don't need it, but you do need it. And they took my spleen out of my body, and then they told my parents that I needed to have radiation treatment. All right. So I ended up getting radiation treatment. They shot radiation into my chest. And of course, 17, 18 years old, I didn't know it at the time. There were some things going on with mom and dad. It's just normal. It's life. Things happen. And, the turbulence that was going on at the time, all of the attention couldn't just be on me and what I needed. You know what I'm saying? And the radiation, they gave me the radiation, all of my hair fell out. My neck was as black as my shirt, and I didn't realize until I began this journey that I'm on now, how humiliated I was as a teenager, going through something like that. So I made it through that, and when they told me I had a stage 3 cancer, I was going through so much at the time, I decided that I wasn't even going to finish the radiation treatment. And I got sick and got rushed to the doctor, and the doctor came back then and said, well, we don't know what happened, but there's no cancer in his body anymore. So I had a miracle then. I didn't know at the time that's what it was until years later, such as where we are right now. But the radiation treatment that I got back when I was 18 years old, it never stopped working. You got to understand that in our culture, we're not really educated on medical issues in our bodies like we should be. So, everything that the doctor says to us, we live off of that. If the doctor says you have diabetes, if the doctor says this, then we just go with it. So that's kind of what happened back then. We let them take out my spleen. Well, years kept going, and here it is. Maybe I got married. I was married before, and things really didn't work out that well. Well, in the midst of that, in my 40s, the radiation never stopped working to the point that in my 40s, the radiation destroyed my thyroid. So I had to go back to the doctor. I had a big knot in my throat now. I go back to the doctor, and the doctor tells me that my thyroid has to be completely taken out of me because it's destroyed. Well, the radiation destroyed my thyroid. You understand what I'm saying? And so they took my thyroid out. Now, just for those that don't know, your thyroid is a centerpiece for your body, and it's kind of like the regulator for your body for so many different parts of your body. What was the term that was used, the gentleman used? I liked it. He used what he said the thyroid was like a...
Did he say alternator?
Like the alternator for your body.
Like an alternator.
And my alternator stopped working. So your thyroid regulates your metabolism,
your
hormones.
It does a lot of balancing.
And at the time again, I didn't understand, like most of us don't in our communities, didn't understand what any of this stuff was. Well, at that point, I believe what happened is my body began to just simply break down. Mm-hmm. You got what I'm saying? And so I went on with life, and I was living my life as I could. And periodically, I would have like droppings of blood in my underwear. And I didn't know what was going on. And then when things started getting a little bit worse, I began to just address it to the doctor and say, hey, this is going on. They started to attribute all of this to a bladder infection. And around that time, I had met this good queen right here, this sister, my beautiful wife, Danirees, who I love very much. We had decided that we were going to get married, and we began to make plans. I'm just kind of fast forwarding a little bit because these things happen in increments of my life. Mm-hmm. But what happened to me here recently, just a little under 2 years ago in 2018, is one of the reasons that we're here today. Okay. And so it got so bad once me and my wife got together that I was going to the restroom, and when I urinate, I was urinating out blood clots the size of a 50-cent piece out of my urethra. And I'm talking about multiple blood clots was coming out at one time into the toilet. And, you know, like I always joke with my wife now, we can laugh about it a little bit, but I mean, anyone that knows what a urethra looks like, it's a very, very small exit where a man goes to use the bathroom, and imagine a 50-cent piece coming out of that. I could have fainted, fell out on the floor. You know, we laugh about it a little bit now, but back then it was a serious trauma.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So my wife, called her in the bathroom. She came into the bathroom, and we went back to the doctor. We forced them to take a further look, and they went inside of my body. And when they came out, from your perspective, what do you feel like you heard them say?
Well, they did a cystoscopy, which was what we forced them to do, to go in and take a further look, because we knew at that point it wasn't a bladder infection. That was just all flow. And after we forced them to do that, they went in with a little scope where they can actually go in and look around in the bladder and see what's going on. And that's when they were able to determine that there was some sort of tumor inside of his bladder. And he had a very unique bladder. We found that out as well when they were in there. And he has pockets around his bladder, and there was a little tumor in one of those pockets of his bladder.
You mentioned something in conversations that we had behind the scene about Mayo Clinic and your experience there. And I do want to just make note for those of you who are watching that neither one of them are physicians, nor am I. However, we do feel that it is important that we address situations such as healthcare on a broader scale. And that's why we are presenting their story here today. So in the hopes that we can become more educated on how we can deal with the situations that are going on in our household and with our health care. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, we definitely believe that was one of the issues when I was going to the doctor and I was speaking, talking to them about my issue before we actually got the doctor came back in after the examination they did, when they determined that I had this cancer inside of my bladder. But we definitely believe that a lot of the issue that we were having had to do with ethnicity. And we also believe that a lot of it had to do with the insurance that we had. Okay. So the doctor, in June, I think June 29th is when the results came back. The doctor came into the room. Me and my wife were sitting there, and the doctor told me that they went inside and they saw this rare bladder cancer in the pocket of my bladder, and that I had this unique bladder, and the cancer was hiding in the pocket of a bladder, and the only thing that they could do for me is take my whole prostate out and my bladder. And I was, after going through what I went through, because there's been many trials in my life, but as a soldier I go on. But going through after what I went through, you can imagine that was mind-blowing for someone to walk in the room and tell me they were going to take my bladder and my prostate from me. And then he walked out. There was no compassion. He walked out of the place, and after he walked out, me and my wife sat there for a moment. We walked out, we went and got into the car, and we sat there for a moment. We stayed in the car for about an hour. We cried. And I told my wife then, I said, babe, I can't do that. I can't allow them to take my bladder and my prostate from me, because that would be a part of my manhood gone. And my wife said to me then my fiance, because by that time we had planned, we had already paid for our trip for our marriage. We was getting ready to go get married. We was going on our honeymoon to Hawaii, and then boom, this happens. So so we cried for a moment, then we looked at each other, and I said, babe, I want to fight. And then my wife said, well, we fighting then. So then we went on a journey. We began to do serious research. And so the first thing we did, though, was to get back to, you mentioned the Mayo Clinic.
Because they are highly respected
Yeah,
in the medical community.
definitely,
And
definitely.
we
But
want to just make, note of that as well.
what we called,
Cancer Center of America.
and what happened with Cancer Center of America?
Cancer Center of America is a very nationally known process. Their process is, how should I put this? In order for them to even see us,
Okay.
we need to have $25,000 down,
Okay.
and we need to have a $250,000 retainer just to be retained to even see them. And you have to live within the state of the cancer center. And the only state that would accept us on a private note, we would have to fly to Texas
To even be seen
to
by
even
them.
be seen by them.
And it was no result. Now, the reason why we bring this up is because we've been seeing Cancer Center of America all of our lives, all over the TV. And so in your mind, you're thinking, hey, Cancer Center of America.
That's what
But when it came to us, it was like, you ain't got that money, ain't nothing happening.
Yeah.
And so we heard my dad mention something about Mayo. And so we called Mayo Clinic, and because we were on a mission. We at the same time while we were doing that, we had decided that me and my wife made up our mind. We said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to contain the cancer. This is with our faith.
Okay.
With our faith, we said we're gonna contain the cancer,
Yes.
and it's not gonna move anymore until we can get it out.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had made up my mind that I was gonna live with this cancer until we can get it out of there.
Right.
And that's the journey we went on. We changed our life, our lifestyle. First of all, I want to say this: if anything, since a situation like this takes place, the first thing that a person got to understand is you have to begin to recognize your faith first, or what you believe in. But you're gonna have to change some things in your body. You're gonna have to change your diet. Anyway, so we called the Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic said, "Okay, we'll look at your case for $10,000." Me and my wife at the time, being blessed as we are, we ran over to the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic went in and did the same thing that they did at, what hospital was that? Was that St. Joe's? What hospital?
No, we were in
Aurora?
Aurora.
Aurora Hospital.
We were in Aurora.
And I don't mind saying their names because it needs, it is what it is.
It is what it
And we went over to Mayo Clinic. They went in. They said, "Hey, we see this cancer. We can go in and we can get this cancer, but we're gonna have to take 10% of your bladder out."
Yeah.
So 10% of the bladder sounded a whole lot better than
Yeah.
not having a bladder and a prostate. I
Right.
said, and so we was like, "That's what we're going with." So we got everything set up. My wife said something that was very important. This is another thing that I want to point out. And first of all, it's an honor to be sitting between two sisters, number one, because oftentimes in our community, we give each other a bad rep when it comes to one another. But this sister right here has given me a whole new understanding and a respect for my sisters and the role that y'all play in our lives to make us better. And this sister stepped up. She said, "Babe, we have to get married before you have surgery." And she said, "We have to get married before you have surgery." And I was thinking, like, is she trying to get something out of me before I check out of here? But I didn't have anything. So she said, but the reason she said we needed to get married is because she said, "Babe, I need to be able to have say-so."
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that I'm so glad in her wisdom as my wife and my helpmeet, is she had the wisdom to know that if I didn't have her to be able to say something, they would have been able to do with me what they please.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what was taking place at once all of this started. They started trying to override her, but I told them, "You have to talk to my wife." So anyway, we got to the Mayo Clinic. During surgery, instead of them taking out 10% of my bladder, they had to take 20% of my bladder. Now, I didn't know this until I woke up.
Right.
That
But
they had,
again, the powers that be,
the
and
powers
knowing
that
that they have
Yeah.
studied and
Yeah.
they know,
Yeah.
and sometimes there are questions that arise during the surgery, and that's why they have studied what they have. And
So they took 20% of the bladder, and they took about 20 lymph nodes out of my body.
okay.
All right. And so we came out of the surgery. So we stayed over there at the Mayo Clinic for about 2 months, maybe a month and a half.
About a month and
We stayed in Minnesota. We wanted to be close in Minnesota in case that I had an issue. Well, I had an issue the whole time I was there.
Okay.
And I knew something was wrong.
Yep.
I was telling my wife, I said, something's wrong, sweetie. We was calling the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah.
We was going back and forth. So we came on back to Wisconsin, and I started having these blood clots again.
Yeah.
So I went to Freighter Hospital. They did a test. They said that my bladder needed to be
You need a bladder clean out.
a bladder clean out. So they sent me back to the Mayo. So they went back inside of my bladder at the Mayo after me having this major surgery.
Yeah.
They go back inside of me. They come back in and they tell me and my wife that the cancer has spread it in the lining of my stomach and in the rib cage of my rib cage wall, and that it was nothing else that they could do for me.
Yeah.
And sent us back here to Wisconsin. Now, when we got back to Wisconsin, we ended up being connected with a doctor who is a real good friend of ours today after
Yeah.
he's seen the miracle,
Yeah.
which is a blessing. And he came into the room, my wife, will you tell this part, how you saw that, what happened when we got back to Milwaukee? Because I was in a daze.
Well, once we got back, and we had left Minnesota, they didn't tell us what was going on exactly. They just kind of told us that it had spread it, and there was really nothing more that they could do. They did, before we left, they did, because there was no chemo for the type of bladder cancer that he had. I want y'all to keep that in mind. There was no form of chemo for that. So they were throwing darts at a board, right? So they cooked up a concoction, that's what they called it, of chemo that they gave to him before we left, right? And after we left and got back to the doctor that was here, because we were setting all that up while we were there, because they didn't want him to leave. We had to force. Like, I was like, we're leaving. I don't care what you guys are doing. I don't care what's going on, but exit us out of here on this day. So after we spoke with Dr. Nan, and Dr. Nan basically, he said legally he has to tell us a 6 to 12 month time frame, you know, but his overall expression let us know that the results were not good.
Okay.
And, you know, my husband, being the man that he is, was like, you know, come on, Dr. Nan, we can see it, you know, just keep real with us. What's the time frame? He said, from the results and from my expert opinion, 3 to 4 months. You know, if that, you know, I would advise y'all to get y'all affairs in order.
Okay.
That's basically what he told us. So, at that time, we were all kind of like in shock, right? Because we never got this information from the Mayo. And so my husband came up to us and said, hey, don't nobody speak this to the ear gates of no one. This stay in this room, this diagnosis that he just gave us. And I was totally on board with that, because we do believe in power of the tongue and what you speak, life on yourself. So we left out of there, and we were all, okay, so I want y'all to understand that your mindset is powerful.
Yes.
His mindset was ready for the fight.
Okay.
He was ready for the fight mentally. So when we got back home, don't forget they gave him this concoction of chemo. He was sick. He was throwing up. He couldn't walk. And, you know, he was just like, babe, I can't do this. If I keep getting this chemo, I'm check out of here for sure. And I just wanted to be that help me that he needed me to be. So whatever he wanted to do, I was in support of.
Okay.
And he was like, well, we ain't doing this chemo. And I said to him, honey, well, they're not doing anything but experimenting on you. So why don't we just do that?
Okay.
And he was ready for it. So we hit the ground running with natural homeopathic methods. And we looked into things and we researched, and that is what led us on our journey. And after we denied all of that medication, I mean all medication, he wasn't taking pain pills or nothing. We took no medication from that day forward when we got back.
Yes.
And we started all natural organic pack. And I would say about within the next 2 months, the cancer started to dissolve itself. Up until he was cancer free in May 2019. And they still are unexplainable for that, according to the medical community.
It's in writing. We have quotes from the doctor, real quick, and the doctors simply say that they've never seen anything like this in their whole careers. And I am the only known survivor of the kind of cancer that I had. They have no record of anyone else that has survived the kind of cancer I had.
Did they give a name to the cancer at all?
Oh yeah, it's you know how to say it better than I do.
It is a sarcomatoid with squamous features. So it's a sarcomatoid with squamous features, which means that it's an aggressive and sneaky cancer.
With intelligence.
Yeah.
And so the kick to my story is the fact that we turned down all traditional medicine and we went on the natural and we survived the cancer. And so the name of our organization, if I may, the name of our organization, we have an organization called Journey to a Better Health.
Yeah.
That's Journey, the number to a Better Health, which is also our website, Journey to the number to a betterhealth.com.
Yeah.
And our mission is for me as it relates to my black men and my men, even young men. You know, obviously I had cancer when I was 17, and what I want to say to us as a culture, but especially to my brothers is that we have to begin to know our bodies. We have to know the language of our bodies when it's speaking to us. And the only way that we begin to do that is by watching what we put in it. Because your body's speaking to you all the time. Your body's telling you that it needs nutrients. Your body's telling you that it needs to have whatever the body needs is communicating with you.
Yes.
The body has to have, the body is made of alkalinity.
Right.
Okay, and so what we need in our body is more alkalinity.
Right.
Sickness can't live in an alkaline environment.
Correct.
But if we're filling our bodies with acid, then our bodies are going to retain mucus and bacteria. Well, disease is birthed out of mucus and bacteria. And so what our mission is Journey to a Better Health. Right now we're working with about 20 people around the country, and we got a couple people out of the country, right?
Yep.
And so what we do is, here at Journey to a Better Health, we want to be a place of refuge to those that have no hope.
Yeah.
And what we do is we help people with nutrition plans. And we educate people. That's our journey. That's the journey that we're on now, is that we want to help people with nutrition plans. We want to help people to learn how to eat the right things. But more importantly than that, some people don't understand this, but there is no such thing as cancer. I say this with passion.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as diabetes. Those are all names that are made to bring fear. Those are names that people put on what is the real name of what it is that a person have is a low immune system.
Yeah.
They have deficiency when it comes to nutrition in their body.
Yeah.
And so we want to bring that back, sister. So for you, when I saw you and your program, and you know, I know G and I know Richard. Me and Richard are very close. You know, we don't talk every day. And me and G, we're close too. And I have a lot of love for those brothers. So when I saw you being concerned about the community in that manner, it was just for me to reach out to you and tell you about this kind of story. You know, they're considering me today, and I'm humbly saying this, but guys, they're considering me a modern day miracle.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't my people in my land take advantage of what I have to offer?
Yeah.
Because everybody else is pulling on me from everyone else.
Yeah.
So I thank you for having me and my wife here today.
Yeah.
You know, because I have to be honest with you. It is a little hurtful that, you know, and I'm not trying to be on the sensitive side, but it is a little hurtful that the miracle happened here, but my people don't receive me. And people are calling on me. I just had an interview, just, you know, that you saw, that you were a part of. A guy called on me from Atlanta. They want to hear my story. So I think that you're the first person, the first platform that I had a chance to share this miracle with.
Yeah.
So me and my wife, we thank you, and thank you for coming aboard and being a part of this journey, because we're going to help so many people to understand about natural healing, natural health, and respecting our queens, because y'all are a very, very big part of who we are. So I thank you. I don't, you know, thank you so much.
You are very welcome, and I thank you for choosing this platform to be your vessel to be able to relay that story and have the conversation with our audience from across the country via YouTube, via social media, whether it be through Facebook or Instagram and other platforms that will be rolling out throughout the course of 2021 and beyond. It was a pleasure.
Yes.
I appreciate you both for just your sincerity, but also your humbleness and just the comfort level that you shared. I will mention that we are shooting this episode remotely at their office so that we could give them that sense of peace. And thank you again for joining me for this episode and this conversation.
So we just asked, if I could just ask that if we could get the support of the people, just follow us at journey2abetterhealth.com. And all we're asking you to do is just keep up with our story so that we can share this story so we can help save some lives.
That's it.
And if you guys don't mind, thank you.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
So once again, my name is Dana Johnson. I'm the host of the Pink Table Talk. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and also on our YouTube channel, which is Pink Perspectives, powered by the Pink Table Talk. Once again, thank you to my guests.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. Thank you so much for having us.
The Pink Table Talk will be offering our fabulously scented, custom labeled Pink Table Talk candle. Each one hand poured by Cheyenne Candles as a symbol of continuous support to the causes and awareness of breast cancer. The candle light, we'd like to say, represents an eternal flame that will burn in memory to the lives lost and in commemoration to those who continue the fight with cancer and our never-ending crusade to bring awareness. Proceeds from purchasing go to the building of the Pink Table Talk advocacy and outreach, as well as our ability to support other programs and agencies in kind. Thank you for joining us.